my fellow flowers, I'm August and welcome to a DIY video. Today we will be making some fun little patches, and typically when you make patches they're embroidered, which takes different materials that a lot of us don't have on hand, and it takes time to develop the technique that best gives you that embroidered look and everything like that. Embroidery is easy to do and a little difficult to master. Mostly it just takes a lot of time. So if you don't want to dedicate all of that time to mastering it to have some cool patches, try some of these methods out. So I found this tote bag, and I don't know what it is, so I don't really want to use this tote bag. And I have a lot of totes, so it's not like I need it, but it's a very durable fabric, and the back is completely blank, let alone you also have inside that you could use if you wanted to, this inside front side. But I was thinking that this would make a really good fabric because it's nice and tough, but it also like has a nice texture to it. So I just have a few designs, just some. Some are more on the cute side, and some of them more just random, I'm cool, Tumblr side. Some of them are just, So yeah, these are the designs that I have. All of these I really kind of just found online, and if you're finding designs online, then you can actually just turn the brightness up on your computer and just kind of trace it, and then you have it on your piece of paper. To transfer these, I'm thinking of doing a very similar thing. I'm just gonna hold the paper and the cloth up to the window and use just the light coming through the window to be able to see the design through the cloth. So even though it's thick, a nice bright light will project the designs that you have through. So I'm gonna try to get all of these onto this. I think it'll work to just do something like that. Yeah, that should work. And then I'll have just like a ton of patches, and some of these can go to my friends, and some of them can, go to me, like this cute little guy. Look at him, he's totally going to me. But yeah, we'll get going on transferring these to the cloth, and also just kind of like cutting the cloth so that it's easier to work with and not a bag, and it's just like a single flat sheet of cloth. So I've transferred my images and patches that I want to make onto my fabric. Boop-a-doo. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with acrylic paint and paint them. I'm going to be using brushes with thick bristles, like stiff bristles that can hold their own. So even the smaller ones that I picked out are like this stiffer bristle. If you have a thin bristle, like a really soft, gentle bristle, then it will be a lot harder to get into all of the cracks and get the paint in between all of the fibers, since this is like a canvas fabric and not just a soft, like a bed sheet or something. Once you're done painting your patches, you want to make sure you use a nice sharp scissors to cut them out so that you can get all the edges and it cuts cleanly. Otherwise, you tend to get a lot of fraying, like there's a little bit right here. And then the other thing you should do is paint the edges, because obviously, you know, normal patch wouldn't have this white edge here. So you just paint the edge. You don't need to paint the back, to be clear, just the edge. And since I outlined all of mine with black, I would just paint all of the edges black, and then it looks a lot more like a actual embroidered patch. And then you can attach it to your clothing. Now, I recommend using a special material to do that. So for outlining the patches, obviously the ones with the black edge, you paint black, but what do you do with the ones that you didn't paint at all on the edges? So like this one and this one and this one. Well, you can just take some Elmer's white glue, some dry clear glue, anything like that, and just do the edges so that they don't fray, but you don't have to end up changing the color of the background. Because obviously if you used like white or something, this is more of an off-white, and you'd have to try to color match, and that just won't work very well, and that would be a hassle. But just any glue that tries clear will work just fine, because you won't see it, but it'll still seal in the edges nice and tight. Now, if you don't have paints, so you can't paint them and make them like this, the thing that you can do is use Sharpies, or any other permanent marker really. So I colored this one with some Sharpies, and I colored the edges with the black Sharpie, so it's not as noticeable that it's an entirely different material and not like actually embroidered. And by using Sharpies, you do retain a lot of that texture, but it's also a lot flimsier. So there's pros and cons. And the pro would be that it's a lot easier to put on thinner materials, and a con would be that, you know, it is flimsier, it's gonna fray more because you didn't seal in the edges with your paint, and in general it might wear down more. So I hope that this demonstrates how important it is to paint the edges. So obviously these edges have been painted, and all of these ones over here, the edges haven't been painted. So it really does look a lot more like a real patch once you've painted it, versus when you have not painted it. So once you have patches that you have completed painting and painted the edges, you are now able to, you know, attach it to the fabric wherever you want to attach it. I suppose it doesn't have to be fabric, but whatever. So if you want to attach it to like a jean jacket, is pretty classic. Then you would just sew it on. But here's my special trick. I use this special transfer paper. Basically, it turns any piece of fabric into an applique, or, you know, a patch, really. So it has a paper side and then this glue sticky side. So what you do is you would place your wrong side down onto the sticky side, and then you use an iron. Actually, you flip it over and use your iron iron it down so that this glue side adheres to the fabric, and then you peel off the paper and it exposes the other side to be gluey, and then you place it down on the fabric that you want and iron it down again, and now it's attached, and then you sew it on. So having that addition of having it sewn and this gluey stuff just makes it hold a lot better, and it's also just easier to sew on rather than like having it sit there and like try to sew it and maybe the fabric like moves around and then it's like sewn on kind of weird. And it is also just easier than putting a pin through your patch, especially since these are painted patches. The pin hole doesn't like heal up the same way that a fabric patch would. So I find that this glue transfer paper is very helpful. What is it technically called? Heat bond. But yeah, so that's my method. If you don't have an iron, here's a fun little hack. You could also use a hair straightener. So before I had my iron, I just had a hair straightener, and I used this pretty trustfully. It can be used a lot of different things. Actually, it works surprisingly well for like even pants, because you do have like this amount of space to shove the fabric, you know, up in between. And so you can get pretty far with one of these, but an iron will just help make everything better and flatter. You don't have to be like crunching it up just to flatten one part, you know, and then you'll probably create more wrinkles with a hair straightener. So an actual iron, highly recommend. I just have like an iron and then like one of those tiny little ironing boards to iron on. You could also get like a little tiny baby iron. Those are a thing that exist, and they're adorable. But either way, you just iron it on, and then you put it on the clothing that you want, and you iron that on, and then you could just leave it at that, but stitching it will make it 100% stay. This is supposed to be like super good and like stay through washes is what the package just says. Like you can wash it, it's just like better than sewing because it's like easier or something, but it's not. These come off, and it depends on like where they are, what type of fabric it's on. So if it's like, I don't know, I don't have a really large patch here as an example. I have larger ones, but not like right here. But like this one, if it was like right on your elbow or something, so it's a fabric piece that's like bending a lot, the edges will start to come off. And especially something like this where there's a lot of points and corners, those will start to peel off if you only use the transfer iron-on paper and you don't also sew it. And to be clear, if you really want to, you can just like sew it on and not use this stuff, but I just find it so much easier if you use this in addition to sewing. But that's all. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you make some really amazing and fun little patches and, you know, share them with me. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you want to see more, and remember to like this video if you enjoyed it. I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.